One of the things I like to think about is, I'm going to compare myself to John here for just a second. We have a lot of the same goals in life. We want to help people, we want to be kind to people, we want to bless people. Because we both love Jesus, we want to reach out and help people. The problem is, we're very different people with very different skills, very different tools, very different pros and cons to that happening. For example, he's a guy. I'm not. You know, he's stronger than I am right from the get-go. He's also a very accomplished martial artist. He's been studying hand-to-hand for 13 years now. So he's got significant skill there where I do not. Frankly, he's a better shooter than I am. I'm pretty good, but I'm not as good as you are. I have a child that will be dependent upon me for my entire life. If something happens to me, that's a big problem. It doesn't just affect my life, it affects his as well. So I am very unwilling to put myself in very risky situations because it's not just me. I'm not particularly scared of something happening to me. That changes the trajectory of his life, though, in a really negative way. So when it comes to interacting with strangers on the street that want to come up and ask for help, he is much more willing to interact with those people. That is a hard line I have drawn. I love to help people. I'm not doing it on the street if I don't know you. I'm not going to interact. That's just a line that I draw because what I bring to the table does not allow me to have much risk there. The stakes that I have are too high to risk there. Now I make a point to give and be kind and be helpful in other ways because that is important to me. We have the same goals, we have to accomplish them in very different ways. So that's what you have to think about is your specific situation. Be personally aware of what you're risking, what you are willing to risk, what that means for those around you, what that means for yourself. And then how do you make your decisions based on that? So this may change over time, and it certainly did for me. When the kids were younger, I had the 4 daughters before we brought in my son as a foster child. Now that we knew there was this, instability in the family, we had this risky situation, so I addressed with them the potential of needing to deal with extended family in the community without me knowing who they were. There was always this chance that a family member that I didn't recognize would recognize the child and come up and want to interact with me while I had 5 kids under my care. And that was pretty scary to me, so we needed to talk that through. We addressed that by talking to it, by coming up with emergency plans, and one of the things we talked about was I wanted to be able to get them away from me without escalating a situation. If a family member wanted to come and talk and cause issue, I wanted them to know to scatter and be gone without escalating it myself by going, this guy's crazy, get away from me. That didn't make sense to me. So we talked about having kind of code words, and those meant, get away from mom. I will find you when I'm done dealing with this. So that was easy with the girls. They understood, they paid attention, they were able to read my voice, they were able to read that things weren't right. They were just able to pick up on social cues. So that was really easy to explain to them when things are wonky and weird, get away from me and we'll figure it out later. We've practiced with that since, piece of cake. Not so with my son. He does not pick up on social cues. He doesn't pick up on, stern looks with my eyes or that I'm speaking in a really odd voice. He just doesn't pick up on it. And even if I were to say, hey, we need to get out of the store because I don't like what I see happening over here, he's immediately going to stop. Why? Why don't you like what's happening? What is that guy doing? What is going on? And cause this huge situation when all I really want to do is leave before there was any situation at all. And that has happened, which has caused me to realize it's not going to work the same with him as it did with them. In fact, I was in my parked car waiting to pick up my husband, and someone approached the car and wanted to sell me some snacks in their bag, which is fine, except I have a rule that I don't do that. I'm not going to interact. So I had my window rolled down just a little bit, and I said, no, I don't have any money for you. And I was pretty firm about it, and everything was fine. She gave me a really strange look when I said that. And I realized something wasn't right, because I can pick up on social cues, but I couldn't figure out what it was until I finished rolling up the window and turned back around, and my son was waving. He'd gotten some money out of my purse and was waving it behind my head as I told her I didn't have any money for her. Now, I said I didn't have any money for her. I didn't say I didn't have any money. But I realized immediately we needed to go over more. We needed to have a better plan than what we did. And so we left because she went to go talk to someone, and I decided immediately I didn't like that, and we needed to leave. We came and picked him up later. So that really drove home to me that what worked before wasn't going to work now, and we needed to figure that out. And we have to an extent, but that's going to be so individual to your specific situation. But some of it is going to really carry across. You know, if we're talking about vulnerable people, it's not going to matter if they're just not going to listen to me, or if they're too little for me to get somewhere, or if they're elderly, or if they're disabled and not able to move them quickly. You are going to have to solve problems differently because you can't just leave all the time. And that's important to realize. As bad as it is, we don't have the same options all the time. So what you do, figure out where you're most vulnerable, what you bring to the table, what you're willing to risk to live a life that's worth defending, and what you're willing to not risk because it's not worth it to you or you don't have the skills to defend it. And filter your own situations through that. Filter what that means to you in your specific life, and then how you can increase your odds to be more favorable to you and to lower your risk. You can't totally eliminate risk. That is not a life that is worth defending. Locking yourself up, locking your children up, not interacting, not having friends, that's not worth defending. But only you can make the decisions what you're willing to risk, what you're willing to do in order to learn to defend it effectively if that's something important, because only you are going to face the consequences. I can give all kinds of advice, but I don't have to face any consequences based on your decisions. So that is something you have to go through and be ready to live with. At the end of the day, but you can take some pretty small steps to significantly lower your risk, and I think that's really important. Awareness, paying attention. Sorry, a little inside joke. He likes paying attention better than the situational awareness, and I guess I agree with him on that. But it says awareness. And your attitude are some of the biggest gifts that you have, some of the most effective ways you can defend yourself. If you are aware of not just the situation you find yourself in, the fact that I am in this situation that signals to the world that I'm a little bit more vulnerable. I have kids I'm paying attention to, or I am smaller, or I have my arm in a sling, or whatever. You need to be aware that that is signaling to the world that you're a little bit more vulnerable. You might be more appealing to someone that's looking for a victim. But as well as the vulnerabilities in your specific situation and how you can change that. Just being aware of those and aware of what's going on in your world, that can make a big difference. The more aware you are, here's one, I got this one right though, John. Awareness buys you time and time buys you options. If you can see a problem brewing, 5 minutes away, that gives you an awful lot of time to deal with it. If you see something escalating and you can just leave the store like I tried to do, didn't work, but I tried, that's better. That's a win every day of the week. So being aware of those things will really help you. Being aware of your situation as you're kind of gaming through this helps. Take that honest inventory. Be aware of what you really can do and what you're really willing to risk. It doesn't make any sense to lie to yourself about that. Come up with what you can actually do. If you are aware, you might be able to avoid, and you can just fill in the blank with whatever that is. You might be able to avoid somebody just kind of messing with you, somebody robbing you, somebody doing worse. So you can avoid a lot of things. Some of the main things you can do to avoid it, if you can't avoid that blank, the next best things you can do is try to get yourself deselected, okay? You need to listen to your gut when it comes to this. If something feels wrong or not right, we spend so much time talking ourselves out of that. And that's just, it's not good. It's not healthy. We have this drive to pay attention to those. Our brain analyzes these things as threats really quickly without you maybe even understanding why it's doing that. So rather than rationalize yourself out of why you're being silly to notice a problem here, just listen to your gut, listen to it, and pay attention to it. It can be a gift. Understand that being kind and polite is not owed to anyone. We don't have to be kind. We don't have to be polite. We don't owe it to people. It's a very nice gift, but feeling like you're obligated to be nice to everyone, you're obligated to be kind to everyone, kind of cheapens that gift. And frankly, you don't. You get to choose who you want to be kind to. And I try to be very free with my kindness, but I don't owe it to anybody. Niceness does not equal goodness. Niceness is a social strategy to get what we want, and we all do that. What I want might be to have a lovely conversation with you, put you at ease, you know, but the fact of the matter is that's a tool that I can use to build rapport and put you at ease. So understand that just because someone is being nice, that doesn't equal them being good. They might be being nice just simply because they have a different strategy at hand and they're trying to build rapport with you, okay? So as I think many women in particular really struggle with the idea of not being kind or not being polite, or the idea of not being nice to someone is really difficult. I know it's a difficult pill to swallow for me, but where does your responsibility lie, and to who? Does your responsibility lie with making the man at the grocery store that's making you feel uncomfortable and he's perfectly fine with that? Does your responsibility lie with putting him at ease? Or does it lie with enforcing your own boundaries? Does it lie with you getting home to your family at night? Or whatever. Your responsibility lies to you and to your loved ones. And I think that's a difficult thing. And it's easy, I think, for women to think about the people in their lives and say, my responsibility lies to them. I can find the strength to be nasty or mean or set some boundaries or whatever with this creepy person because of my children. But frankly, that's kind of a cheap way to get to convincing you to care about you don't need children to be important. You don't need a spouse to be valuable. You are worth defending right here, right now. Your boundaries are worth defending. And you don't need another person to make you valuable. And I think that's something that a lot of women need to hear. It is okay to defend your boundaries because they're your boundaries. The end. And you can just, nope, don't want your help. You don't owe niceness, kindness, politeness, any of that to some stranger. You just don't. They didn't care how uncomfortable they're making you. Stop caring about being kind or polite to them. If you can't avoid it, you can try to get deselected. And there's a couple of different ways to do that. One, there was one moment in particular where I was approached by some men with my son and they wanted some change. They wanted an obscure amount of change, like 53 cents, which means me digging in my purse while they're standing there getting them some change. And this is A, against my rule that we talked about, I'm not helping people on the street. B, I'm sure not putting my head in my purse while I've got a bunch of guys surrounding me. But I just sort of stopped and I looked at each one of them in the eye and I said, no, I don't have money for you. And I wasn't really trying to be disrespectful or challenge them or anything, but I did want them to know, I see you. I see what you're doing. And just have them know that I saw it and they saw it and we all saw it, and it was best to just do something else. And we see this all the time in videos, in particular with women. When they notice a threat coming their way, they avoid looking at it. And in talking about it, I think that is because when you make eye contact with someone, you're inviting interaction. And very often, I think even bad guys would like to, they're waiting for that cue. And for men, it's maybe not a big deal because for the most part, you are gonna find yourself, you're not gonna feel threatened by some stranger having an interaction with you. Women are really constantly aware, and those of us that have vulnerable people in our care are constantly aware that we are generally vulnerable to half the population, and that is just the truth. So we often want to shut down that interaction very quickly, and that means looking away. I think this is something that bad guys really can use and realize that, okay, she feels threatened, she's looking away, this is a time I can move in, this is a time I can do whatever. So one of the strategies that I employ is I don't do that. If I feel threatened by you, I'm immediately going to at least make eye contact. I just want to send that message, I see you. I'm not like everyone else. You can't predict necessarily what I am going to do. And I'm a better victim if you can predict what I'm going to do. And you can't, so maybe move on. So that's one way I really try to be deselected in that manner.